Good evening and welcome to the Gin and Tonic Show on Friday, the 12th of October, from a very wet and rainy and storm-drenched the UK. We have Storm Callum over here. That's dumping rain and high-speed winds, etc. So it's a fascinating and wet time for us. And want to welcome my co-panelist, Stop Spamming, as always, and our guest presenter, Thunderous. Good evening, gentlemen. How are you guys?
Hi, thank you.
Well, much more dry than you. Kalam is to blame for everything, right?
Yeah, Callum, Storm Callum. That's right. Good evening as well to the viewers and to you in the chat. Feel free to share anything. If you are watching and you would like to join us a little later on after the main topic, then message me, please, in the chat. Or if you're already a friend on Facebook, then send me a message. I will add the link and bring extra people in after the main topic. So without further ado, Stops, you've got a news item you want to share with us first, and then we'll do some crazy comments, and then we'll get straight into a nice, interesting topic here with Thunderous.
Yeah, I'll have to. This is a quick detour into the US. Now, I think I've been very clear on what I think of Trump, and I mean, I think he's a clown, a dangerous clown, and he came up with this idea of putting a judge on the Supreme Court, which is a big deal in the States. Okay, now he's been accused by several women of having assaulted them sexually, and a US imam says that this Judge Kavanaugh, who has been appointed. Can you believe it? You've got a president who thinks that it's okay to grab women by the pussy, and you've got a judge on the highest court in the U.S. who's it's unbelievable, who thinks it's okay to assault women sexually. And in the U.S., this doesn't seem to ruffle any feathers, even though they are the ones who always say, "Yo, we are so holy," and things like. Now, because he's been accused of having assaulted several women sexually, okay, a US imam came out and said, well, he can't be put on trial. So Kavanaugh is good to go because there are no 4 witnesses. And that's it. That's my news item.
Sorry, I was going to say he's backing that then with like a Sharia view, even though that's not the law of the land in that country.
Yep.
Interesting. So I don't know why he thought it was necessary for him to comment on that in some way.
And this is when people ask, why are we worried about Islam? Why are we discussing Islam at all? It doesn't, it doesn't concern us. Well, it does concern us. Because people like this idiot go and say, well, it's okay to assault women sexually. It's perfectly okay. If you don't have 4 witnesses, what's the big deal? And this is what I don't understand, where a Muslim imam can go and make these claims. I don't get it.
Well, that's what
I really don't understand how Islam can be so callous, can be so crude, can be so like sexist. And this is horrible, I think. And then they go and they say, well, Islam is good for the world and should dominate the whole planet and everything, because then everything is good to go. And come on, guys, wake up. You cannot live like this. You cannot have an imam saying, yes, it's okay to simply go and assault women sexually. It's okay for a judge to be doing that. A judge who's going to be applying moral standards. The big deal is that he's going to he's going to make sure that abortion is going to be outlawed outright in the US. That's crazy. And things like that, it is important. And it is important to realize that it's religions, that it's, ancient superstitions which are at play here. Okay, done.
Do you not think, though, that when situations like that arrive, where a religious person, say from in this example from the religion of Islam, makes a comment like that it kind of like it does the work for you? It's like, well,
no, unfortunately not.
But it's like, well, I know you've been doing this for several years now yourself, with your own channel, exposing Islam or revealing Islam or highlighting deficiencies in Islam. But when you get an imam speak like this on such a world scene with the pedestal he's being given, then it's kind of, well, any sane person will listen to that comments and say, well, there you go. All the stories and all the theories and all the things that we've been hearing about Islam have just been proven true.
Yeah, it is like that, and you would think so. But unfortunately, a lot of people are saying, no, it's just a religion. The Bible also says that Christians also say this. There are nut jobs who go and do this. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people who will excuse this, who will find excuses for this because there's a God involved. If you're called imam or reverend or pastor or something, you can get away with bloody murder, and nobody will do anything to you just because you have this background. Yeah, and again, why says, oh, this is just PCMO. Yeah, post-colonial masters orders. Yeah. Okay,
All
I'm
right.
sorry. It's against my moral standards, and I will never accept it. I will never, ever, ever accept it if a woman gets assaulted sexually. Okay, that's it. Yeah, this is another imam. Okay, he calls himself an imam, and yet he's lying, deceiving. He's constantly like it's unbelievable. And then he writes me messages. I mean, I've just slapped him around like crazy, and he comes back for more, and he wants to now debate me on anything that I want to. How is an Imam Kenny Boma?
Well, let's just bring it up, Stops. I don't think anybody could see it yet. So hang on one sec. Let me bring it up here and present it to everybody, and I'll just read it.
Oh, I thought. Oh, I didn't even know that if I see it, the others
When
can't.
when truth comes, falsehood must flee. Keep running, atheists. We both know you got spanked and humiliated. Otherwise, you would jump at a chance to prove me wrong. I can say the sun is hot, and you can call me a liar. I can call you an atheist, and you may say the word doesn't exist. You're simply a buffoon. Prove that you're not. Pick a topic. I will leave you confounded and perplexed again.
How stupid do you have to be? I mean, I've shown that he is really, really a lowlife, really dishonest, full of deception, and then he comes back and thinks that I'm going to debate him. No, you idiot! This is stupid what you are doing. And then to tell you, I got spanked. On what, I may ask? And this is the thing. Thunderous just said, yes, but they are doing the work for you. Unfortunately, they are not. I mean, this guy thinks that I got spanked and humiliated.
Yeah, but who's his audience? His audience isn't, say, the person in the middle that's listening to two sides of the story. His audience are going to be the Muslims that he's playing to, that are going to pat him on the back and say, yes, yes, you did win. And that's really what he wants. He wants his ego flattered. He wants his ears tickled because he's appealing to an audience that he knows are going to be passing him. And very much in the same mind, if you've listened to debate programs before with Muslim scholars for dollars, they're all the same. They come out from the same mold. They have this disposition and attitude and default that when they're in a debate, win, lose or draw, and let's face it, they never win. So lose or draw, this is their default stand after the debate anyway. So you shouldn't be surprised with this, Stops.
No, I'm not surprised. I'm just saying the audacity for me is I'm confounded by this. I cannot. What I can't understand is that somebody can stand up afterwards and then say I got spanked and now he wants to come for more, when he knows that he's been slapped around and I'm going to do the same thing again and again. And yet he will go and tell, I mean, I understand this is the same thing what you have been saying. No, they're not doing the job for you because they still think that they have something to say, that they actually have the high ground, and they don't. But he must know that. And I...
Go on, Stops. No excuses here. Keep running, you atheist.
Yeah. And the thing is, he doesn't even understand the word atheist. So he gives me the definition of atheist, where I am somebody who claims that gods don't exist. No, I don't do that. And I'm saying, okay, if that is what an atheist is, then I'm not an atheist. So I refuse to take on the label atheist. I just refuse it, point blank. I will say that I'm a person without a God belief, and that is accurate. And that is true, and that is the way that it is. I don't need this label atheist, which is so full of presuppositions, and there's so much baggage attached to the word that I will not identify with atheist. I am not. I'm simply somebody without a God belief, and that's it. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Moving on. You and I have had a difference of opinion on that for ages.
Yeah. I know, and
We
a lot of people have different opinions on this. A lot of people say that atheism exists and things like that. Okay, fine. I'm cool with that. It's just that I don't.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Okay.
moving on.
Can you go louder? I can barely hear him. Thunderous, is there any way that you can jack up the volume, or
Yeah, I'll do
Rob,
it.
can you jack it up a bit?
Yeah. Give me a sec. I'll make it a bit louder here. Which is the right one? Why is it not coming up? Here we go. Okay, it should be a bit louder now. Thunderous, just speak for us there.
Hi, how's that? Any better?
Excellent.
Yeah,
Much
that's coming through a little clearer.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, moving along. Keep running, you atheist. Right, here we go. You non-atheist. Whoop. Yes, there we go. So here we go. Here's somebody. Wow, the most informative. Let me make it a bit bigger. There we go. Wow, the most informative video you will ever see. Some will spend 3 years in university to learn and understand what this gentleman has explained in the space of half an hour. This guy, Sabur, is shockingly intelligent in explaining, describing, and teaching evolution. He goes against the mainstream view of Darwinian evolution, but has stronger, more logical, and more reliable alternative to mainstream Darwinian evolution. Taught to students all over the world. This man is really great.
Come on, is this satire or what?
Always loving to see Brother Sabur debating. He's a genius. Well, I told you it was crazy comments. There we go. But don't worry.
Is this satire? Do you think this is serious?
No, yes, he's serious. No, I think that because the name, I think it's serious. But hang on a moment, we're not done yet. That's just the beginning. Hang five. Alhamdulillah, Bro Sabur. Allah bless this man with an incredible brain. The way he represents Islam here is actually brilliant. Instead of guys who pretend to be smart, this guy, however, is a professor for real. Individuals like Sabur are one of the reasons I continue to believe in a creator. May Allah bless him and those like him. And we're still not done yet. Don't worry. The praise keeps coming here.
No,
I love
on.
Bro Sabur. For the sake of Allah, I have learned so much about how to refute atheism with him. May Allah reward you, bro. Amen. I laughed so hard when he said truth can be subjective as well. Sabur, then why are we having this discussion? This is the funniest shit from atheists. If you know what that means. Now we move on to another one. Oops, let me get up there. I can't remember where I got this from, but anyway, I don't know if you sent me the stops or somebody else where I got this, but anyway, here we go. And this was in relation to some video, I think on Facebook. Oh yeah, Allah, don't worry, if you die, you will see how bastard you are. Oh, this is from Armin. So whenever Armin makes a video, or people like Mimsy, Vids, and so forth, this comes straight from Armin. We've had Armin on the show as a guest. Hell is waiting for you, brother. Don't worry, you are gay. Don't make Allah like you. You such a bitch, you pig. May Allah grant you the biggest hell in hereafter. Bar boy. What else can you do but laugh? Hang on, we're not done yet. It's coming more. I wish this video reaches every Muslim so that they know how disrespectful these homosexuals are and why they need to be exterminated. Well, I mean, if that's not a call to violence, unless he means exterminated, intellectually, but somehow I get the feeling not. I don't know why. But wait, more to come. Forget Allah. Why is this world so much behind this gay thing? Gays are increasing, and I'm disappointed and shameful. There are gay folks at every corner of every culture, religion on earth. God made us all, didn't he? He made everyone straight. Then women fooled you into being gay. Forget education. You can't even get human nature right.
What? He made everyone straight, and then women fooled you into being gay. So why didn't they manage this with me? They tried so hard. So many tried, and they didn't get it right.
And the rest
Forget
of us
education. You couldn't even get human nature right. Forget it. What does education have to do with gay? You couldn't even get human. Okay, I don't know. Yeah, this is crazy. Yeah, you're right. Crazy.
Yeah, this is all from Armin's channel.
Oh boy.
Being in the United States, he's actually in Canada, I think. But anyway, You're free to do that, but in a Muslim country like Pakistan, Afghanistan, etc., I swear people like they are going to cut your dick off and make you suck it, dumb arsehole.
And
Shut
this
up,
is
you tart.
actually
He's in
true.
Canada. No matter where, it's fucking weird to make fun of other religion. And this is something you touched on as well, isn't it, Thunderous? The fact that if they were, in fact, in other countries like Pakistan or elsewhere, it's very likely that there would be significant violence. He would not be able to do that.
Yeah.
Well, they did this to a guy. They
Did
killed
they?
him, put his penis in his mouth. Yeah.
Oh, really? Where was that?
I can't remember.
Oh, okay.
But I've read this a couple of times, so yeah.
Okay. This might be the dumbest post ever. As a non-believer, I think you have no right to provoke any kind of religion. I don't care if you are atheist or something else. This is not cool. I don't believe in anything. And usually I don't give a fuck about what people think about religions. But if you text Jesus is gay, I'm sure you would receive the same amount of death threats. I'm sure you wouldn't. That's complete nonsense.
This is exactly the point. You don't.
It ain't about death threats. It's about respecting their beliefs. And you don't do that here. Not cool, man. We talked about this earlier today on the Titans TV Discord. So shout out to Titans TV Discord.
Yeah, that's actually quite a good idea that Kalam had there, and it's been continuously used because he started this, went into this, set it up, and it seems to be working. And there people are gathering, and well, I've been there on 2 or 3 occasions, and it's been very civil and quite nice. Yeah.
But I think I think all three of us would agree here that there's something going on with like a little background noise there. I'm not sure what it is.
Talking about religion distracts the global community having an effect on the effects of a climate emergency we're facing. Of course, yes. I mean, there's a lot of theists who believe that God created the whole universe just for them, especially this planet, and will look after this planet. So all that we are seeing, everything that's happening is just natural, and everything will come right. Of course.
Yeah. Thunderous, I'm just going to mute yourself if you can. And obviously unmute yourself if you want to chat, but I think something's coming through there. I don't know if it's something that like hitting your jacket or there's something happening in the background I can hear on your mic.
That could well be the storm in the background because there's no other noise in my room apart from the wind clattering against one of the outside gates that's slamming. So that could well be what it is. The effects of the storm we're having in this country, and I've got a rain, slashing against the window, and there's not much I can do, I'm afraid.
No, I know. I've got the same.
No, it sounds like a zip is going up and down the microphone.
Right, I'm going to try and mute the mic, and then just call me when you're ready.
Or just jump in if you see something in one of the comments here. Just unmute yourself and chat.
I just thought it interesting that the guy made a comment that you walk around and you'll get the same effect if you had a T-shirt saying that Jesus is gay, which is totally not true because I've seen people in my locale wearing T-shirts like Jesus was a C-U-N-T, and wearing it with impunity because if you respond to that, then if you're a Christian and you respond to that in a violent way, then you've proven yourself not to be a Christian. Hence why somebody can walk around with a T-shirt like that with impunity. However, I'd like to see somebody walk around with a T-shirt say that Martin Luther King was gay and then do it in the Bronx. I'd like to see how long that lasts. And Martin Luther King wasn't even religious, so...
Wasn't he? I thought he was...
Well, he's not held... What I mean is he's not held as a religious idol.
Yes, he's not a prophet or whatever. Yeah, that might well be problematic as well.
So these people make these comments and they pick out certain characters from history where they can make that claim and kind of like how it sounds like a pseudo-intellectual, pseudo-smart.
Yeah, and of course, this is demonstrably not the case. If you text Jesus as gay, you wouldn't receive you wouldn't receive any death threats. Very likely, the worst you receive is some nasty words, if that. Actually, we had a gay Jesus here as well in the same parade. Nobody received any death threats. So there we go, and there's a nice picture. So somebody responded to this fella, setting him straight on that point. Cool. So what's this one now? I'm going to read it because I'm not sure where this came from. Please, you must honestly think people are dumb. First of all, it's your principle. This might be the principle of free speech. Like I stated in the talk, which you were being grown man. Oh, this is Rajiv, I think. is it maybe? A grown man got upset about the law dictates to the law dictates to us the play field in which we conduct our conversation. Oh, this is just Rajiv's misunderstanding of free speech. So he suggests that we have to go by the law. If you disagree, you've got a parliament, but that's just laziness of you free speechers. You can never put your money where your mouth is, hence why you rely on individuals like Tan to do what you're afraid to do. Like I said, we'll ask you every week what law it is until you've bothered to educate yourself. Such a shame at your age. There's more hope with YouTube comment sections, to be frank. Have a lovely day, dear. So lovely, condescending fellow who's still profoundly confused about this free speech thing. So no worries, we will carry on. Oh, and I thought this was brilliant.
The usual thing.
We're patent-seeking animals, but presumably that is, I'm guessing that that's an equivalent of some Arabic word meaning something, right?
Allah.
Is that, it's like is it this part as well? Or is it just
it's Allah. It's these three round things. Whenever they pop up, regardless of what is underneath, around, in front, or whatever, as soon as you have the stylized W, it means Allah. To them, it doesn't. I mean, it doesn't look anything like it, but for a pattern-seeking Muslim, it probably does.
Yes, yeah.
Isn't there a condition, a word for it, where people see religious icons or words or symbols in nature? Yeah. There's a word for people who do that.
Yes.
Yeah, it's religion, deluded religion.
Yeah, well, it's pattern-seeking, but you're right. There's probably like an actual word. Maybe if you hear us in the comments, you can let us know. What is there an actual word, like a scientific term for when people?
Yes, it's pareidolia.
What's it?
Pareidolia.
Pareidolia. Okay.
But that's not religious. This is just pattern-seeking. It's just that you see, there's plenty of that. I've done videos on this where there's so many of them. Where a tree grows a penis or a vagina or something like that.
Yes. Lily says it's the term is it's a mental condition. So Lily's saying in the comments there. Cool. Oh, here's another one. Alhamdulillah. Sabur, Allah bless this man with incredible brain. The way he represents Islam here is actually brilliant. Instead of these guys who pretend to be smart, this guy, however, is a professor for real. Not sure if that's the same comment.
Did you ever ask him to come here and do this here?
I don't know if I asked him directly. Somebody did. Oh, yes. I know a particular Muslim who did ask him, and he said no, he thought it'd be a waste of time. But on a separate topic, I think Phil is going to have a debate, but he only wants to do it online, not Phil. Phil wants to, he's followed up Sabur to have a debate. Excuse me. But Sabur only wants to do it in the park. And he doesn't want to do it online. And I suggested there's various reasons for that, and I made Phil aware of them, and I'm sure he's aware of it anyway. But I said, online would be the best place. And what would be even better if they swap resources. So you know what resources they're going to speak from, which is what Phil did with the fella in the US, which I think is the most honest thing to do. If you care about what's true and you want to hear the best possible responses to your position, you'd give somebody all your resources and say, hey, here's what I'm going to talk about. Here are the resources I'm getting it from. I'd like you to go and check that up, and then we can have that conversation.
Exactly.
I'm sure I don't need to tell you what the response to that was.
Well, Kenny Boba's response was, is that a typo?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, because many of the people do not want to hear the best responses in case either they don't have a response or the response is in fact a fairly good rebuttal or even refutation.
And so Macintosh is actually raising a good point here, because it's true. When will Shabir commit to his promise? Because he said he would, and this was like 3 years ago, and he still hasn't done so. And
yes,
you challenged him on a mistake with the mathematical error with the inheritance fractions, and he still hasn't commented. Correct.
I'm going to quickly look and see actually if I can find that email just to show people I did do it. I mean, I haven't done it for some time, but I did actually. Here we go. Let me see if I can bring this up. So yes, let me share this so that people can see. We'll stop sharing that one and we will share this one. So just so that people see that I have actually done that.
Maybe you photoshopped it.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of the best way to do this.
And by the way, I'm still negotiating with Mishka if they can have somebody come in, but they want $1,500.
They're mad.
Because plus expenses. and they want crowd control and security. I said, listen, this is just
online. What are they talking
this is
about?
online. This is nothing. There are no expenses. It's 20 minutes of your time, and you're doing a good job for Islam. You can pick the topic. You can say whatever you want. You can stay however long you want. You can do whatever you want. We're just interested in learning from you about something in Islam. They can't handle that. They can't handle that. They want a fixed topic, and they want a fixed this and this and this. Anything other than that, they can't handle.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Okay, I've got it here because people have asked, so I'm going to bring this up now. So I'm just doing the screenshot, I think, rather than sharing screen, because that's sometimes...
Khabil Nurmagomedov. Great. Yeah, this proves that Muslims are very good at beating up others.
What is that you're talking about?
Question in the chat about the this MMA fight.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Let's just see if I can find the right thing. Make sure I've got this correct. Here we go. Okay. So people asked. So here we go. I shall bring this up. So here is my original conversation. Hey, Shabir, following our brief conversation, Speaker's Corner this Sunday past, I wanted to reach out to see if you're available to join us in the Jinn&Tonic show. We present every Friday, 8 p.m. UK time. So hopefully there is a date that would be suitable for you, including this coming Friday, if you're available. Cheers, Rob. And then I said, hey, Stops, your thoughts on this? And I presented the whole thing. This is because he wanted to know, I can't see it here. Rob, hope you're well. Kindly remind me of our conversation required for the evidence of the alleged error. And then so I presented this with verses, and I put down what we believed. I sent a video with Stops' position there so that he's clear on what it is that we want to talk about. So verse 411, 412, and 4176. And I put all the details in there. And then eventually I followed up, and here was his last response I've had on the 20th of August. Apologies for not responding earlier. I've just been very busy. I will respond to your apparent error in the Quran, and then we consider appearance on the show thereafter. And that was on the 20th of August, and you can see about 4 hours later I responded. Thanks for your reply. I look forward to hopefully having you as a guest on the show, on our show. Yeah, and I think that's it. So there we go. That's the last time that I've had a response in August. Partly my fault, I suppose. I haven't followed up any further. I'll keep this up here on my screen actually now to follow up. So that's where we're at with that. So there we go.
Unbelievable.
So I don't hold out much hope, but who knows? Maybe we'll still get something if I push back again.
Just to make this very clear, I've challenged Hamza Tsortzis, Adnan Rashid, Ali Dava, all these people. And as soon as it comes to talking to somebody who knows a bit about Islam, who's read the Quran like me, then they will run because they know they have no leg to stand on, and they will refuse to talk to somebody. They will take on people who don't know the Quran, different academics who are sort of experts in their field but don't know the Quran, and then they think they can run their disingenuous program and run this script where they are saying, well, the Quran is so miraculous and you can't refute me. There you go, I've won the debate. It's stupid. That's all they can do. As soon as somebody's read the Quran, they're lost.
But that pattern goes all the way back to Ahmadiyya. I grew up with watching Ahmadiyya debate Gary Swaggart and various other people. That's just a tradition, and it surprises me that people are expecting anything more from Islam. That's all Islam does. Hence why I repeatedly use the Mike Tysons of the debate world. When they come against somebody with real knowledge on that particular field, they don't stand a chance. In the same way, Mike Tyson, he wouldn't fight Riddick Bowe or Lennox Lewis or Evander Holyfield, and when he did, he came unstuck. And this is what happens with Hamza Tsortzis and Adnan Rashid, Faker Naik and Ahmadiyya. They handpick their debates, and this is a tradition from time immemorial. Are we to expect any different now? No. The reason why we're not going to get expecting different, in fact, it's going to get worse for them, is because with the advent of the internet and the information becoming more available to a wider audience, people are now a lot wiser. People are a lot more sophisticated than they were in the past with information that they're able to glean now. Once upon a time, when debaters were having their debates, they may have had a slight advantage, the Ahmadiyya, so to speak, because the information available at the time wasn't that available. It's quite scarce. If you wanted to know something about Islam, you only really had access to the Quran in physical form. The Hadith, I mean, I know the Hadith aren't exactly easy to get unless you're paying about £600-700 for and the complete Hadith off eBay. I even contacted the Saudi Arabian embassy 3 times this year to see if they'll donate me, the whole Hadith. Which they're not able to do, strangely enough, from their Dawah department. However, the point being, in this day and age, this is why you won't find credible debaters from Islam debating anybody who appears to have some kind of knowledge. They'll go for the ignorant people, where, punching from across the road will make them feel like a world champion.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I still expect a little bit of honesty. This is why the one message I am giving to somebody like Kenny Boma, I said, I just want one thing, please. One thing. Stop lying. That's all I'm asking.
But with respect, Stops, I think I may have said this to you last year or maybe the year before. What are you expecting from Islam but to lie? Islam is based on a lie. You cannot defend a lie with truth. All you can ever do with a lie is defend it with further lies. They can only dig themselves deeper, and the more they dig, the harder it is for them to get out. Hence why you're in these situations constantly, repeatedly, timelessly.
Yeah.
I want to bring up one more interesting thing. I don't know if you're aware of the Stops or Thunderous. Some people are, and this is Paul Williams, who apparently, and I haven't confirmed it personally, has potentially left Islam. So I wanted to share this and read a few tweets here. Again, I'm not claiming to know this for sure, but here are the tweets that were captured by somebody else, apparently from Paul's Twitter. So here we go. If any religion, be it Islam or any other, tells me to put the brothers first and not call out those who threaten the lives of innocent people, I walk away from it. I believe as an Englishman that I have a duty to uphold the law and, when necessary, publicly make known Muslim extremists who actively and publicly support terrorism. He said Muhammad taught this. I replied that in that case, I disagreed with Muhammad. I've been told by another highly respected and rather good Dawah carrier that I was wrong to publicly call out a known ISIS supporter at Speaker's Corner. He said I lacked wisdom. Also, that Islam teaches that we do not make known publicly the sins of fellow Muslims.
This is exactly this. It fits so well to what Thunderous has just said.
Yeah, and so he's got 2 more here. I'll just go through those, and then we can talk on that if necessary. A faith must be above reproach, above equivocation with evil, calling to justice and peace. I am on a path to find this faith. I think I will return to Christianity, a non-Trinitarian version. I do not recommend Islam to any English person. There's something badly wrong with it. I have tried again and again to make it work, but I still come up against the terrible problems with Islam. I have been by Muslims told over and over again that what I did was wrong. I say, you have your religion and give me mine. I cannot in all conscience follow Muhammad anymore. And the last one here that I'm aware of. I've left Islam. It's done. I can't return to your religion. It's violated my sense of right and wrong as an Englishman. May Allah protect us from fitra, so the English culture is the source for you.
No, careful. Very different.
Decide what is right and wrong. Yes, it's more civilized. Welcome home. Prayers to you. Thank you. So there we go. Again, I haven't absolutely confirmed it, but that appears to come from Paul's, original Twitter account. So I don't know if anybody else can do more than confirm that. But that certainly was at the time. I think it was last week, whenever it was, a couple of weeks, within the last couple of weeks anyway. Rather surprising. Although I did sort of thought he had doubts, but it wasn't sort of along those lines. I did think there were some doubts, but I would never have expected him to deconvert, and certainly not necessarily for those reasons that he brought up there. So interesting.
I find it strange with such people that do things like that, because they convert from Christianity to Islam. So by implication, by your actions, what you're saying is the Bible's being corrupted, polluted, and deviating from what the reality is. So I'm following this religion. You find out that the religion you've just converted to is actually worse than the one you left, in your opinion. So you go back to the one behind that you said was converted in the first place and corrupted. I don't get the logic in that. So why did you ever leave Christianity in the first place? Because when you left Christianity to go Islam, you was led to believe that the Bible was being corrupted. It's not Christian anymore. It's been polluted. It's got poison in it now. And now you're going back to the vessel to drink the poison that you said was poisoned.
Yeah, but you can find, there's so many versions of Christianity. You can presumably find one where you can kind of split the difference and find a version where those critiques still hold. And so there's possibly a version of Christianity that you can go to that's non-Trinitarian that also agrees that there's some problems. And I'm sure you can find one. I mean, especially with Christianity, it's so malleable these days.
Yeah, but what I'm referring to is not so much Christianity is polluted but for a certainty, because even Jesus, you can read the Bible and see that even Jesus says, that the faith will be deviating from truth. You've only got to read Matthew 7:21-23, I think it is. Jesus is making the quite clear condemnation that there are some people going to be called Christian or Christian denominations, and he's going to say, get away from me, you workers of lawlessness. But we're not talking about Christianity and what kind of ideology you're looking for. We're looking about what the book teaches. Islam is quite clear. The Bible has been corrupted. So when he left Christianity to go to Islam, he went with the view that the Bible's been corrupted. That is to say that Jesus didn't die. Adam was 90 foot tall. It's okay to beat your wife. And all the other things that the Qur'an teaches that the Bible doesn't. But then he's now saying, well, actually, no, I did believe him. Then I was persuaded not to believe him. And now I'm going to go and believe him again. I think the guy himself has got a problem.
We'll see what happens in the future if he comes back down as a Christian and somebody can have a chat with him directly and all that. I don't take it as gospel. I mean, those are tweets, but I'd need to hear it, or somebody would need to confirm it in some other way other than Twitter, I think, for me personally.
I hope he's written his will, because he should realize if you leave Islam, you're punishable by death.
Well, presumably that is unlikely to happen in the UK, but you're right. I mean, anything could happen, I suppose, but more unlikely.
Well, he should be advised to write his will in any case, in any event.
Well, yes, I think that's just a good life piece of advice. I've done that myself, so I think it is useful. And with that said, Thunderous, over to you. So on to the main topic, which is Khadija. Is she, I guess, the original source of Islam? So certainly a different view, and different views are welcome. We're going to put it out there for people to make up their own minds. So I'm going to mute myself. And obviously, if you want to, we'll unmute ourselves. We'll be listening in. But I'm going to pass the baton over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you for passing the baton over to me, and hello, everyone. The discussion this evening is why I think that Khadija is actually the first and true prophet of Islam, and I'm basing this on maybe just 2 or 3 hadith alone. What I want to do is stick with the hadith and look at it as a step-by-step, as if you're like a fly-on-the-wall documentary team observing this, and try and stay away from the things that are peripheral. One of the things, for example, that are on the peripheral is the period called the Jahiliyyah, which is the period of ignorance, which has an implication in the discussion tonight. But I want to leave that on the back burner for a moment. So moving forward then, an illiterate man who, in his early 40s, who's known locally as the truthful one, because allegedly he never lies to anyone, goes, as is his routine, to a cave for some seclusion, and there, in solitude, he meditates for a period of time. What next takes place can be found in many hadith of Islam that triggers a chain of events that have since significantly changed the course of history since for the worst. The irony of this change is that it was triggered by a woman, Muhammad's first wife and his boss, Khadija. What is this irony? Well, Khadija's own history testifies to the freedoms experienced by women in pre-Islamic Arabia. She is a businesswoman. She is an employer. She is wealthy. Though wealth and having a thriving business does not testify to having an education or being literate, what it does testify to is being smart, savvy, discerning, adventurous. She, and likely her peers, enjoy freedom, free will, respected, and no doubt honoured. Yes, it is with irony that Khadija's resulting actions thus plunge women subsequently after her death into a state of insignificance as mere incubators, incapable, unintelligent, and I think probably best put by the poet in Saudi Arabia, probably about 10 years ago, who said, Muslim women will not go to hell because it is impossible for them to go to hell twice. I couldn't have said it better myself. So looking at the first hadith then, where we find Muhammad in a cave, it reads in Bukhari, "The angel caught me forcibly and pressed me so hard that I could not bear it anymore. He then released me and again asked me to read. I replied, I do not know how to read. Thereupon he caught me again and pressed me a second time until I could not bear it any more. He then released me and again asked me to read. But again I replied, I do not know how to read. Thereupon he caught me for a third time and pressed me and then released me and said, read. In the name of your Lord who created man from a clot, read. Just to use another hadith from Tabari's time, Muhammad said, I've been thinking of hurling myself down from a mountain crag, but he appeared to me as I was thinking about this. And Muhammad said, I am Gabriel and you are the messenger of God. Then he said, recite. I said, what shall I recite? He took me and pressed me 3 times tightly till I was nearly stifled and was utterly exhausted. Then he said, recite in the name of your Lord who created, and I recited it. Then I went to Khadija and said, I have been in fear of my life. There are many hadith that relate to this account, giving more or less details, but invariably all recounting to the reader the same first experience Muhammad has with the spirit world. He staggers home to Khadija, his 55-year-old wife boss, with conviction and fear that he has seen a spirit creature, Gabriel in Muslim parlance, and that he has been demon-possessed. Ishaq relates, Khadija wraps around him a blanket and proceeds to console him. Khadija does not seem to believe that Muhammad has been possessed or that he has just had a demonic experience. As she goes on to state, Allah will not treat you thus, since he knows your good character. So rejoice and be glad. I have hope that you will be a prophet of this community. And it is in these words that I consider that Khadija is the first prophet of Islam. So going step by step through Khadija's actions, let's take a closer look. 1. Her husband comes home clearly terrified after this encounter. Yet Khadija is not the slightest concern for him. There are no questions, and there seems to be no sense of anguish, anxiety, or urgency on her part. 2. She wraps a blanket around him, but it seems that this account reveals her sense of a knowing, an experience, and even a certain sense of expectation, as the hadith later goes on to reveal. Now you think about it, your husband has just spent some time alone in a cave, away from you. He then comes home, having had this experience. He doesn't know the experience. He doesn't know why he's had the experience. He's not familiar with any of the history of spirit creatures. He's terrified, suicidal, and in some later stages in Islamic tradition, he thinks he's going mad. These are the things that are peripheral that need to be put to the side, but need to be borne in mind. Point 3, she's confident it's not a demon, but an angel. But how does or would Khadija know this? She certainly was no eyewitness to the event, yet she already knows the nature and character of her husband's spiritual encounter. How? 4. She then makes a bold knowing statement that not only does she know Allah's She then makes a bold knowing statement that not only does Allah know Muhammad's character, but that he will not treat you thus. Khadija knows more about Allah and his nature than the man who will go on to become, in Islamic theology, the mercy to mankind. Point 5. Khadija encourages Muhammad to be glad and rejoice. But why? Her husband has just come home clearly frightened. There's been hardly any time to think, and already she's taking control and lead in this situation. Point 6. It is now at this point alarm bells should start ringing as Khadija then goes on to proclaim, I have hope you will be prophet. This is the moment Islam is born, and it is Khadija who gives birth to Islam. Quite simply, Khadija is the real prophet and mastermind of Islam. Point 7. Khadija then confirms, as it were, the demographic location of his soon-to-be prophethood to this community, but not globally, not to mankind, and not as a mercy. Khadija was a clearly bright, intelligent, wealthy businesswoman who employed, amongst other men, her future husband. It cannot be underestimated how she immediately saw an opportunity to further her stature in the local community of illiterate family, friends, and neighbours. Perhaps using her stature and the respect that she had gained over the years to influence her local community into believing that it is her husband that has been chosen by Allah. After all, who would challenge the intelligent, wealthy, influential woman who no doubt was of good character? the implication is that the mystery spirit was an angel, not a devil. But why would this comment come about? One of the accounts that we have in Islam where Muhammad is frightened is actually revealed in Tabari. And I'll just recite that for you. Tabari 107. Cousin, can you tell me when this visitor comes to you? Muhammad replied, yes. She said, tell me when he comes. Gabriel came to him as before, and Muhammad said, here is Gabriel, who has just come to me. She said, yes, come, cousin, and sit on my left thigh. He came and she said, can you see him? Muhammad says, yes, Khadija. Yes, Khadija continues, move around and sit by my right thigh. He did so, and she said, can you see him? He replies, yes. She then said, sit on my lap. He did so, and she said, can you see him? He replied, yes. She was grieved and flung off her veil and disclosed her body. While the apostle was sitting in her lap, she then said, can you see him? Muhammad replied, no. At that she said, rejoice, cousin, by Allah, this spirit is an angel and not of Satan. But angels don't lust and pre-Islamic women don't wear veils. Perhaps the sight of a 60-year-old woman's wrinkled spaniel's ears were enough to disturb even demons, perhaps. And it is here that I think I will draw a close on the discussion thus far, because there's enough information there to show that Khadija knew more of the situation than what Muhammad did. Muhammad's frightened, suicidal, he thinks he's going mad. Khadija, though, seems to take the reins of the situation, manipulate the situation to her advantage. That's why I think Khadija is the true prophet of Islam. Over to you guys.
Awesome. That is fascinating. I mean, I knew about the story, obviously. I hadn't gone into depth with each of the hadiths, etc. But certainly, well, obviously, we'll get Stops' view on this as well, and what you guys think the Muslim response would be. Because if you are a Muslim and you're watching this and you want to come on and challenge this, then by all means, let us know. But it does, and that's what I've always thought as well. You know, he went to the cave, had this experience, didn't really know what was happening there, then went back to Khadija, and she sort of took control. And just to, I want to keep it on Khadija, but I just want to check in. Did they not go to, as far as I can understand, to a Jewish rabbi who actually told them that it was Gabriel, right?
It was Waraka, her cousin, and his cousin, because of how they were all related to each other. This is yet again another one of those points that's on the peripheral, that yet again, you know, if you introduce into the account, it kind of expands the account, and you can go on tangents, because, you know, it brings into the point of the Jahiliyyah, the period of ignorance. So if it's a period of ignorance and nobody knows who Allah is, because at that time in that community, the Jews were not really following, say, Genesis to Malachi. They were more following the Talmud. How do we know this? Well, we confirm this by the stories that are in the Quran that are actually nothing more than repeats and plagiarisms from the Talmud. That's how we know that the Jews in this community were more followers of the Talmud. Christianity in his community wasn't the Christianity that was followed, say, by Paul and the apostles in the first century. How do we know this? Well, one of the trinities that the Arabian Peninsula condemns isn't the Father, the Son, and Old Spooky. It's actually the Father, Son, and Mary, and that form of the Trinity, what was popular in the area in Muhammad's day. So, if it's a period of Jahiliyyah rather, then how are they going to go to another prophet to confirm something that is already a corrupted form of what they're trying to confirm? You don't go to a liar and ask for truth. You don't go to a poisoned source or a poisoned well and then proceed to drink from that. It contradicts it. Cool.
Yeah. So, Stops, what's your thoughts? Because it certainly seemed like, as you've put it there, now obviously Muslims are going to disagree with it, but it certainly seemed like he was unsure, fearful, etc., and she sort of took control. So either playing devil's advocate or what you've heard from Muslims, Stops, what would be your sort of take on that?
Well, my take is that the texts allow this. Okay, all these texts are so vague and ambiguous that it's up to you to find whatever interpretation suits you. And I'm impressed with the way, with the logical, rational, and you know, following the traditional narrative, and then taking the data, taking the information, and then going off in a different direction and saying, Well, what happens if you take a different attitude, a different approach? What if you take and it works? And this is this is the amazing thing. That's something that is quite controversial, actually. Something that goes against the grain of what everybody else says. You can make it work, and this is
just come closer to your mic. You're a bit far away from the mic. Stop. So you there? Hello, is it me or you?
I can hear you.
Okay. So stops. We can't hear you. You're unmuted, but you've disappeared there. You were getting progressively softer, and now you sort of disappeared. So let us know when you're back, and you can continue on. So have you, Thunderous, have you sort of shared this with any other Muslims or anybody else? And if so, what's been the response?
Well, it's like anything that you share with any Muslim. When you bring something up to Islam, it's just denial. They'll turn around and say context, which is the default. All you find 99.99% of the time, I'm sure you'll agree with this. First of all, what Muslim are you talking to? Well, 80-90% of them don't even know what their own religion is. It's a bit like, not only do I have to teach you what I believe, I have to teach you what you believe because you don't know what you believe. So when you do come out with any experiences or anything that you understand from Islam and you disclose it to them, denial, take it out of context, and the usual default arguments come out. You can't really have an intelligent discussion, and thus far I've yet to meet one.
So that's interesting. I mean, as I say, if there is a Muslim on here, then that's watching or in the chat or wants to come and share, then please let us know.
I respect what Stops had to say there, and he's quite right. You'll get various interpretations. But when something is quite clear and you're following it with the principle of, say, on the fly on the wall documentary team, you're watching as it unfolds, you can't go by anything else, particularly when there is a process stage and it's giving you a stage-by-stage account of what's taking place. He goes to the cave. He has an experience. He doesn't know what's going on. On his way home, he wants to commit suicide. There are various surahs and hadith talking about his suicidal mind state. He thinks he's going mad. There is one surah in the Quran where Allah has to confirm that he's not going mad. So you can see his mental state at each stage as he's going through his life with these revelations he's getting. And when you're following it through, Khadija's actions and reactions and how she seems to take hold of the situation, she knows what's going on. How does she know who Allah is if it's a period of ignorance? What Allah has she got in mind? It couldn't have been the God of the Bible, the God of the Christians, and the God of the Jews, because the God of the Christians and the God of the Jews is unknown in that peninsula. It's only a corruption that they've got. They haven't got any truth. Because if they had any truth, if Waraka was this real priest who was writing things down or copying from Hebrew into Aramaic or into Arabic or whatever he was copying into, or whatever role he had, because Islam is kind of vague on that. Why would you go to a priest of a false religion to confirm the identity of Muhammad? Why is it? And also, you can bring out the point about the lump on his back, which is supposed to be the seal of the prophets. You can introduce that into the situation. As he's growing up, no one sees this lump on his back. As he's growing up, he's not aware of this lump on his back. He's had 4 daughters with Khadija. She must have seen that lump on his back several times. She doesn't know what that lump means. And all of a sudden, you have an account that this lump on his back means that he's a seal of the prophets. Have a word.
Yes, indeed.
Didn't they have a local deity there that called Allah?
What? How many local deities? Wasn't there 365 in that neighborhood?
Well, so they claim. I mean, I don't know who came up with that number, but I mean, the fact is that there are, like Abdullah. How can the father of Muhammad be called Abdullah if there was no Allah?
You see, this is where I was saying to you earlier at the beginning, and I did want to go on to the peripherals. Abdullah, his grandfather, the slave of Allah. Well, who's this Allah that he's a slave of in the period of ignorance?
Exactly. So it doesn't tally, does it?
And I think when you do start researching Allah, time and time again, the same information keeps coming out. Allah was the moon god represented by the crescent moon. Yet again, I agree that it's a subject in itself and it goes off on a tangent. But this is why when you're discussing something with Islam, it just opens itself up to so many things on the peripherals that it's difficult to get away from them when you're trying to hone down one subject.
I also want to welcome in TJ. Good evening, TJ, or afternoon, wherever you are. you've been listening into this, hopefully. Give us your thoughts on what you think from what Thunderous has been presenting.
I mean, I just think it clearly shows that, you know, he was deluded. I mean, maybe he had like some sort of experience. Maybe he had some sort of, I don't know, acid trip or whatever you want to call it. But maybe he had a profound experience, but that doesn't prove that he's a prophet or that, you know, he received revelation or, you know, I'm saying anything like that. So even if we accept the premise that, you know, he had some sort of a, you know, an experience that, you know, couldn't be explained, I don't think you can jump from that to I received revelation. So, but, you know, Khadija, I mean, to her credit, I mean, I guess maybe she didn't want the town, you know, like, you know, talking about how crazy her husband was. So maybe that's how she justified it.
Yes, I mean, you can definitely make an argument that something needed to be done here, and you know, that was one way to do it. But as you said, Thunderous, going to a Jewish rabbi, even if they were a family member, seems like an odd thing to do. I mean, presumably you could have said, hey, you know, she could have asked him and said, hey, I spoke to Muhammad, and you know, he was fearful, and then I calmed him down, and you know, the something came to him, and he now realizes. So it seems like you could have empowered Muhammad to come to this realization himself.
Okay, but then the dialogue doesn't suit that statement, does it? Because
sure.
Because the dialogue she gives, she knows who this Allah is. She's telling Muhammad what his life course is going to be. He's going, you know, I hope you are the prophet. He doesn't know, but she does. And if they went to the Jewish rabbi, now let's follow the logic through. If they went to the Jewish rabbi, he will be aware of certain situations in the Bible where angels did appear. And they never grabbed hold of people or made them fearful. In fact, the times when you look at biblical accounts of people, of angelic appearances to human beings, the first thing that comes out of their mouth is, don't be frightened, don't be in fear, be at peace. The first thing they do is calm people down. They don't grapple with them like they're in WWF.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, they're not grappling them, they're not frightening them, they're not choking them, they're not making them feel suicidal. If you follow the narrative through, Waraka should have told us this guy's possessed, this guy's had a demonic experience, not of a godly experience, and he would have had the texts to prove that.
Yes, this has been brought up in Speaker's Corner as well. You know, that's not what you expect from an angel. Hey, I'm Angel Gabriel. Welcome, you know, fear me not, etc. I want to share with you a message. And of course, it's, you know, entirely different to that.
I mean, if you go to the, I mean, you can use Jesus's words, false prophets will arrive, but you can use something even more, you know, honed down. I think it's in the book of Galatians chapter 1, where the Apostle Paul says, if we declare to you as good news something beyond what we declare as good news, let him be accursed. So whether you look at it from the Genesis to Malachi scriptures, you've got enough evidence there to refute Muhammad. If you look at it from Matthew to Revelation, you've got enough evidence there to refute Muhammad. Either way, Muhammad should have been refuted.
Indeed. Thoughts, guys? Stops you back there now, TJ?
Yeah, I'm back. It was typical thing. You plug USB into a headset which is empty or going towards empty, and everything's gone. I don't know what the hell Microsoft thinks. Yeah, like I don't know at what stage it was cut off, but I'm really fascinated by this, and it shows you how interpretation works here. And if you develop it logically, step by step, you can see and you can make it work. You can see how everything can fit in, even if you're using a different perspective altogether. And that is the fascinating thing about this.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, it's certainly, like you say, it's a case then, I guess, perhaps one of the Muslim responses would be, okay, she helped clarify things because, of course, Muhammad was a little bit confused, etc., etc. But he then went on to get all the revelation. So I guess maybe Thunderous, a response, I'm just trying to think of devil's advocate type responses would be.
So how many responses did he get, or revelations did he get while she was alive? Why is it that he waited till she died before he married other women? it seems to me that though I've not looked into this because I couldn't find a suit or a reliable source to give me the information, but how many revelations were revealed to him during a period of time from the moment he was this moment in the cave to Khadija's death? How many of them, and how many of them would have gone against a narrative that she would subscribe to?
Yes, I would imagine they wouldn't have, right?
Well, you don't imagine that, it's like, well, they wouldn't have done. You've only got to look at Saudi Arabia or pre-Islam, and then look at Saudi Arabia post-Islam. And you can't imagine that she would have, if you like, got behind any kind of manifesto that would have been contrary to the environment that she was brought up in.
Yeah.
Well, I came up with this idea that all the Quran is just a recruitment manual for the troops to fight for the caliph or for whoever is in charge in the name of their God, which would help them to gain huge riches and things like that. So there's different ways of explaining and interpreting this. There's different hypotheses that you can formulate around this.
And again, this sort of goes back, doesn't it, to the point of, is this the sort of clearest, most concise, complete message that could have been sent down? And the entire worldview rests on this dubious, cave experience to get things going.
And
exactly.
And this is it again, isn't it? Where we go back to the Islamic confirmation of itself, where it says this is a book made clear, a book easy to understand. If Allah, is using this situation to his benefit, then you can only go by the logical understanding that we see in the hadith of this encounter and the step-by-step process as it comes forward. We don't need interpretation from modern-day scholars for dollars that are doing nothing more with respect, and I don't want to sound rude, but taking a piece of dog excrement and spraying air freshener on it, or getting out the duster and polish and trying to polish it. That's all you're doing. You're not fooling anybody. You might fool a blind person for a moment when you spray air freshener and dog poo, but sooner or later, the stench is going to come through and overpower the air freshener. And they're going to smell it for what it really is.
I love how you preface this with respect.
And it's the same thing. They would have understood this. We're a lot more sophisticated than the audience that Muhammad had. And they were said to be the best of mankind at that time. Nobody would have understood Islam better than they would have done. And then apparently with Muhammad saying that then the next generation were the best, then the following after, it kind of dilutes itself with each generation. Yet the irony is we're a lot more sophisticated than they were back then. We can all read, they couldn't. So we should understand things better and a lot more simpler than what they had at the time when Muhammad was around.
Yeah.
But something you always say, and it stops, many are, taught what to think and not how to think. And so you brought up believing that the book is true. You don't even think to question it. And when you do, you're giving answers that really aren't satisfactory. But again, you've got to console yourself with it. And then occasionally you get the ex-Muslims like Thunderous and many others that suddenly engage critical thinking, go, hang on a moment, let me go think about this for myself. And suddenly it's like you break the illusion, as other ex-Muslims have said, you sort of wake up from the Matrix and many other references of such nature.
Yeah. But then if you follow this through, and this was the beauty of it, as soon as you switch on, and this is why I like Thunderous' approach, as soon as you switch on logics, as soon as you switch on rational thinking, as soon as you start looking at it as an outsider, you immediately grasp that this is not the work of a God. This is not the Quran is not the book, the product of a God. It's nowhere near perfect. There is no perfection whatsoever. And this is why as soon as you start switching on your brain, you will see this. And that's why we can read today and we have the internet. And that's why we have so many ex-Muslims today, I think, anyway.
The thing is, you're absolutely right, Stops. And just to add on what you were saying there, the Islam is very clever as well, in that it has a thing called gatekeepers, intellectual gatekeepers, where other people do their thinking for you. And it happens in other fields as well, business, science, politics, but more so with religion. And in particular, I think the king of kings in this area would be Islam, where you have gatekeepers to intellectual thought. So you don't think for yourself. You have these scholars for dollars who do the thinking for you. And that's where the problem lies. They're not relying on themselves. They're relying on these scholars for dollars.
Are people aware of this actually? Because I hear you mentioning this, so you obviously are. Is everybody aware here that a Muslim will always say, I cannot answer that. I need to check with my background, with my elders, with my whatever, that they are never allowed to voice their own opinion, that they always follow a scholar. They never voice it themselves. They never interpret anything. They always ask for permission for the official ulema or the consensus or whatever it is, that they can never say it themselves. It's always somebody else.
And if they don't go to the scholar themselves, they'll turn around and say to you, I've had it umpteen times where they turn around and say, well, why don't you go speak to a Muslim scholar? You think you're so smart, you go speak to the scholar. And again, if they themselves can't go to the scholar, they'll just send you to the scholar because they can't answer the question themselves, or they don't want to think about the question themselves.
And if you ask Stops what happened when he went to the scholar in this case?
He failed miserably. But this is the point. Yeah, okay, we've done it. I just wanted to make people aware again, once again, test it. Ask a Muslim a question and you will see how many times they will come back and say, no, I can't actually, I need to test, I need to check, I need to ask my imam or somebody.
Yeah, I did the funniest experience. I had one recently. I don't want to go off topic, but as you mentioned, scholars, I was talking about Dul Qarnayn and the copper-covered iron wall that he built between two mountains, which would be the greatest industrial feat in human history.
Yep.
No architecture will ever touch it. And I asked, where is it? There has to be a location that somewhere on Earth, this greatest industrial event will have taken place. Where is it? And the response from the guy was, it's so heavy. Are you stupid? That kind of weight would have sunk in the ground.
Along with the Gog and Magog.
Yeah, I didn't even want to go there. I stood there in disbelief, thinking to myself, there is no point in going any more further in this discussion with a response like that. I think Bruce Lee said something really interesting. You may have heard this yourselves, where he says, a wise person can learn more from a stupid question than a stupid person can learn from a wise answer. This is what you get when you're dealing with Islam.
I thought that was Confucius.
Well, I thought it was Bruce. Well, I've researched Bruce Lee's quotes, and it seems to have come up one of his. So maybe he plagiarized it from Confucius.
He might have borrowed it. He did quite a bit of study into philosophy, didn't he, at the same time? Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. But it is fascinating with all of these sort of things. And people just obviously just believe this, grow up believing these things. And I mean, Stops or Thunderous, have you, and we can broaden the topic out. I mean, obviously, I think we've kind of covered that. And I think it's, it's a very good topic. And, it certainly seems like she was very influential in the beginning, if nothing else, if we were extremely charitable and, but I think, had he been confused or gone with somebody else, or the story hadn't quite run that way, who knows what would have happened? We would have just had another, guy that was in a cave hearing voices. I mean, if that happened today, we'd be concerned. We'd probably ask for a psychological evaluation. So, but what if you guys had Stops or TJ or Thunderous? And I also want to welcome in Liam. I think, Liam, you're all the way somewhere far away, aren't you? In
Sydney, Australia.
There you go. A long way off.
You've presented, but not active.
There you go. There you go. Welcome to the show as well. I think it's your first opportunity. But I want to ask all of you, actually, as we go through here, if you've encountered Muslims or imams or, those that seem authoritative, what sort of, have you ever had sort of a response where you went, that's a reasonable response? Or have virtually all of them been so incredibly poor that you can immediately, counter them on the spot or dismiss them?
I think at the surface sort of level or the introductory level, they can seem intriguing, but whenever you get further into the debate, it becomes more and more ludicrous.
I think. Sorry.
Sorry. hang on one sec, Thunderous. Sorry, Liam, as well. Just to whatever degree you'd like to, just just introduce yourself to whatever degree you feel safe and comfortable, and your interest in it, and then we'll move forward. Yeah.
Yeah, just the religious sort of topic just intrigues me really, but non-believer from Sydney, Australia. Just basically try to tune into as many of these things as possible whenever I'm awake.
At 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, I actually got that right. Daylight savings at the moment, so it's a little bit better for me.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, but just enjoy engaging in these sorts of topics, really.
Do you have a lot of interaction with Islam or Muslims down there?
Not personal, like face to face. It's more just sort of online watching, and enjoying.
Because you guys do have a speaker's corner as well, hey? But I think it's more sort of political or social there, isn't it?
I've never actually joined it. Yeah, it's certainly not like it is in the UK. That's for sure. But no, that's more down. I'm like a couple of hours north of Sydney, so.
Oh, okay. So it's not
it's a bit far to travel down there.
Yeah. So going down the panel then, can you guys share, when you've spoken to imams, and again, this doesn't have to be obviously about Khadija specifically, but have you had any responses that you've thought are sort of halfway reasonable, or on the other side of the coin, as Stops has done, can you perhaps share anything that's just been downright crazy or ridiculous, and what that topic was?
Well, as I've said, the craziest one I've had recently is that the giant wall sank into the ground. That's why we can't find it. But I think you have to ask yourself the question, what in Islam is actually rational or decent or intelligent that can make you think that you'd get a positive response that was credible in the first place? There is no subject in Islam, in the Qur'an or Hadith, that would make that where you'd get a response, in my opinion or estimation, where you'd actually get a qualified, intelligent response that make you think and say, you know what, that's a good answer, because I've thus far yet to find one.
Yeah. TJ, Stops, your thoughts? Have you had anything remotely close that you felt like you could actually engage in sort of more than a surface level conversation? If you guys are there, and maybe they've stepped away.
No, I'm waiting for TJ.
Oh, okay. Maybe he stepped away. There he is.
No, I mean, I haven't heard anything convincing. I mean, they'll try their best. I mean, I give them credit for that.
What is the best thing you've heard, TJ, in inverted commas?
In terms of the existence of Allah, or just for Islam in general?
Either or.
I guess something to justify our suffering, because as I see it, there's nothing wrong with suffering in of itself. I think it's the meaninglessness of it, and I think for some people who do make the argument for like the existence of Allah, I guess if there was something behind our suffering, if there was some meaning or some sort of purpose behind it, I guess that's been the best thing. Because I struggle with that a lot. Because, it's one of those things like that kind of makes you question life in general. But I guess if there was some meaning, behind it, I guess that's the best argument I heard, where that there was something behind it.
If it were true, what's the meaning behind it? Life is a test, right? And it's submission to Allah for this life, in the hope that you get, the virgin paradise. Is it the virgin paradise that, if it were true, you would sort of want, or is there anything in this life that makes it worthwhile?
I guess providing meaning, because I do struggle with nihilism a lot. I struggle with it a lot. But I guess for me personally, it's about embracing life, ultimately affirming life, and taking the good with the bad, taking the joys with the sufferings, and just embracing all of it, because to me that's part of life. That's part of the human condition. And so when people talk about minimizing suffering and minimizing pain, stuff like that, I'm like, some of the greatest stuff, like some of the greatest poetry, some of the greatest music, some of the greatest architecture has been produced through tremendous suffering. So I'm one of those, people who doesn't take that argument too seriously. From my own
if I
point of view.
understand you correctly, your challenges with not having a cosmic meaning or not having a meaning in your own personal life at this moment.
I guess it's meaning. I mean, I can speak for myself. I mean, to provide meaning for my own life, because like I said, nihilism is it's a powerful thing, and I think that's why faith still exists. I think that there's some people who can't believe that their life is meaningless, that their suffering has no meaning, and that there's ultimately no purpose, and that there's going to be no final redemption to come in the next life. So ultimately, that those whole things combined, I think that's the reason why faith still exists, because some people just can't live with nothing.
Yeah, I'm sure that there is that case, but I think there's a lot that one can say about the world without having a divine supervising authority. The meaning you have for your own life, making it better, having a smile on the face, connecting with a wider community, making the world a better place, whatever that might mean. So I think there's a lot that could fill that gap. But you're right. I think that for people, if they're so used to that, taking that out, there's potentially a vacuum left there, and that needs to be filled. We were talking about it earlier on a different hangout about, somebody asked, would we want to see religion vanquished from the planet? And yes, with the proviso that there's education and something to fill the gap, many of those, moral or psychological issues that people may face if religion suddenly disappeared. So just have it disappear with a vacuum, I think probably would cause great turmoil. But if we could have education in science, offer people opportunities and how they can see things differently in every area that religion currently experiences or currently is involved in, then I think we'd have a better world. But that wouldn't, unfortunately, be an instantaneous, process. But
because we saw that vacuum, in like the 20th century, that was filled by rising nationalism, socialism, and communism, and all that stuff like that. And obviously that didn't turn out too well. So depending on what the vacuum is going to be filled, filled with, because you can't just offer somebody nihilism and be like, okay, here you go. Some people are going to refuse to accept that. So
yes, you certainly wouldn't go down that route. Again, it's all a perspective, isn't it? So offering people a different view on the world, and there's so much that you can offer. There's so much that you can do, and changes you can make, and so forth. So I think it is a process, and ideally you want to start it young, but even if you're older, and again, but Thunderous, you're an ex-Muslim, aren't you? So to what effect does that have any effect in your life? And if so, or if it did, how did you overcome that? So how do you deal with what sort of TJ is alluding to there?
I think I made it clear. I don't want to go too far into what I believe, because I don't want to change the subject. But I think I made a comment several weeks ago where I accept intelligent design, which is it's as far as I'm prepared to go in a discussion without going into too much of a theocratic discussion as to what I believe. There are reasons or motives as to why I'm not prepared to go any further, but I think it's evidently clear that what my stand is, because I reveal it in the comments that I make, so the discerning will hear what I'm saying or what it is that I'm doing. If that makes I'll keep using that phrase, don't I? I hope that makes sense, or I hope I'm being clear on that.
A little bit cryptic, but that's fine as well.
But I'm trying to be cryptic, but the minimalist commitment I can make to that is, I believe in intelligent design.
Okay, a version of that. Liam, your thoughts? How well, firstly, I mean, do you think there's any sort of cosmic purpose or anything like that? And if not, how do you deal with nihilism, if you do even think about it?
Yeah, no, certainly don't believe in any sort of cosmic creator or intelligence at all, other than what we see in species on the earth. But no, nihilistic, I don't sort of go down that road too much. I can see its appeal and its sort of negative traits as well. But I suppose, like anyone who has some sort of wonder in the world and the universe, to fill the void sort of concept, like a paganistic sort of, like worshipping of nature and the sun and the trees and these sorts of things could fill that void on a spiritual sense, and so could some sort of what's the other one? Not paganistic, but pantheist sort of views as well. So you could still get your spiritual sort of fulfillment from those sorts of views without ever needing to appeal to an actual intelligence or some sort of a dictatorship.
Yeah, I mean, I presented the other day on not on a broadcast hangout, but another hangout, a version of a God that I thought if it existed, I would want to have a relationship with, and it comes from the Conversation with God book, where there's a God that's presented, that's an unconditionally loving God, etc., etc. And I think that overcomes, pretty much all of the problems that I see with the Abrahamic God. But Stops, obviously, being involved in this for such a long time, what's your response, or what's your thoughts on nihilism, or meaning in life and that sort of thing?
That's all bullshit. I've never heard anybody come with any compelling, convincing, or anything argument. All you hear is the clouds and the trees, and that's it. And if I am then, oh, sorry, am I soft or hard?
You're a little bit soft, yeah. I have
okay.
turned up, but see if you can talk a little louder.
The amount of disingenuity, on the other hand, the amount of lying, the amount of deception is boundless. And this is why I see gods as being so, if they do exist, they are so terribly incompetent that I would definitely not want to have a relationship with anything like a god, because they are so frightfully stupid and so narcissistic. And so, I mean, come on, it's definitely not the Abrahamic ones. Maybe there is one, like Rob says, who's a nice guy and blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, cool. What do I do with him? What do you talk about with a god? I have no clue what to do with a god. Can I go sit over a beer and talk about shit? I don't know. Now, this leads me to a question that I just saw on the chat, because we had Arif Ahmed, Professor Arif Ahmed, on the show. And we were discussing exactly this, the psychology of cults, the psychology of Islam, because he came out of a discussion with Hamza Tsortzis, and we went into this. We went into different philosophies. We went into talking about planting up, about the different approaches that different... Liam, okay. Can you mute this?
Liam, maybe just mute yourself there. Or
yep, sorry. Never mind that. Yeah, no, never mind.
So we're talking about exactly this thing. How does religion actually work? How do these cults go and approach people? How does the Islamic approach differ? And Islam is no different. It's just that the problem is that it makes so many absolutist claims that it becomes ludicrous. It becomes like as soon as you start thinking about it, it's so easy to refute. It's so easy to go and show that it's stupid. It's just that the people are so disingenuous and so full of lies and deceit that you can't get through this wall. And this is the problem. And this is why I maintain that Islam's psychology is totally different in its approach to all the other religions that I know of. And this is where I see this totalitarian fascist approach towards the political side of Islam. And that is where I see the danger. And this is what I always try and address in these things. Because you can't come from a spiritual side, because it's faith, not facts, okay? There's nothing there. It's fakes, not facts. So what are you going to do with it? So from a spiritual side, yes, you can argue, yeah, it's nice and blah, but then we don't need the Quran, we don't need Islam. So, no.
Although, as I say, we were chatting before the show started, Stops, and I could bring on a Sufi here who would give you the spiritual view, but it becomes very
exactly.
airy-fairy, and you can't pin it down. And eventually, when we had a conversation
exactly.
On a hangout recently, we got to the point, because he didn't have any methodology to demonstrate what he was saying is true, and of course he used this flowery language. It ended up being that we couldn't really differentiate his views from the Heaven's Gate cult. And for those who don't know, that was the cult where, you know, the cult leader convinced a group of followers to commit suicide so that they could ascend up to an asteroid that was passing by Earth at a particular time. And of course, he sort of claimed, well, you know, they committed suicide, so that's obviously wrong. And I sort of played devil's advocate, as I occasionally do, and suggested that no, he wasn't. He just didn't understand. He wasn't on their spiritual level, because in fact what they really did was transform. They left their bodies behind so they could ascend to the next level of spirituality, and that happened to be on a passing asteroid, so they could then continue their journey, you know, across the universe.
That's Scientology. That's Xenu all over.
Well, a version of that, you know. But I think that's the issue that I have with the, you know, the spiritual version. And of course, this is the Islamic Sufi version. But a lovely guy, and obviously, you know, he's got an entirely different take, although somehow he still believes that it's the entire word of God and Muhammad is the messenger and so forth. And that part with the Quran, you know, but there's always deeper meanings. I'm sure all of you have heard that before as well. So, you know, if you look at the surface level meaning, well, depending on who you speak to, that's not really the meaning. So we've got to look at a much deeper meaning, and there'll be somebody in history that has sort of come up with a deeper meaning, and that's appealed to certain people. And I always suggest that, you know, if that's the best that God can do, this ambiguous book that anybody can look, quote unquote, for a deeper meaning, I'm not sure that that's a clear, concise, complete message for all people. So,
yep, absolutely.
So indeed, somebody else was looking for, just to see if there's anything in the chat here as well. Somebody
Telescope, if you want to join, just go and talk to Rob and he'll sort you out.
Let me, so I need you to friend me on Facebook here, because I don't want to put the link in here, otherwise we get trolls. So there we go. Telescope. He's interested in psychology of cults. So we actually did do a show on that, didn't we, Stops, if I remember correctly? Yeah. You know, how Islam compares with a cult, and we went through the various stages of various steps of, you know, how it compared. And I think
TJ, do you want to say something on this?
I'm sorry, about what?
Cults.
Cults in general?
How
religion compares.
Yeah.
Sorry, how Islam compares religion. Islam.
Well, I mean, it's that slave-like disposition. I guess if human beings can't, you know, search for truth on their own, if they're not willing to investigate, then they'll fall for anything. And that's that slave-like disposition. It's the same thing with socialism or communism or any other slave-like, disposition. So whether it's, you know, theistic or non-theistic is irrelevant, but there is a slave-like disposition that develops in people. You know, people who are, you know, intellectually lazy and who don't want to investigate. So, but it makes sense to me, because, you know, human beings, to me, are fundamentally, you know what I'm saying, irrational. So, it's not surprising in the least. But as far as Islam goes, I mean, it's no different, you know. So, but people fall for such things because, after all, we are all, you know, human. So.
And somebody, and BJ is saying, and I've asked for the link in the chat there, Islam rates high on the cults.
Because remember, we did the Carl Sagan / Sherber baloney detection kit.
Yes, that too.
The opposite. So I've never heard of the bite bottle for cults. So come on, just give us a couple of pointers there.
Yes, I mean, I'm guessing there's different models, isn't there, that rate cults with different criteria, etc. And so for the person who's asking there, I'll just give you the channel link and just do a search here under the videos. If you do a search here, you'll find one on the cults. So best place to look here. I can't really have a deep look while we're running it at the moment. So, but have a look there. We will have that. We'll have the details there. So, anything more on the topic of the beginning of Islam, i.e. with Khadija, or anything surrounding that? Oh, by the way, yes, I did want to ask this. Guys, those that sort of know this and have details on this, some of the Muslims say that when Gabriel came to Muhammad, he said, read. Obviously, the question is, what is he supposed to read in a cave? And the others say recite. So And presumably, I think, Stops, you might have covered this before, it can mean either of those. Is that true, or is one more prevalent than the other, or as is often the case, one thing in Arabic can mean whatever you sort of fancy?
Sorry, you'll have to say the beginning again, because I was looking at Mahmoud Hassan's comment. Or is it that only the admins can join? No. As soon as you send a message to Rob, he will ask you who you are, blah, 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 and then give you the link, and that's it.
Yes, I see now. I'll deal with that now. Okay, so let me ask it again. With regards to the read, recite, Stops and Thunderous, TJ and Liam, for those that know, some people say it was, as Thunderous talked about there, it was said read. Again, what are you supposed to read? Others say, maybe have realized that might be problematic, and they say, no, he was told to recite and made uncomfortable a few times. So what's the view on that?
I think
that's the word ikra. And the word ikra can be different things, neither one of which makes any sense in that context, because he's never heard of this, he's never seen this, and he's told to read when he can't read, and he's told to recite when nobody tells him what to recite, and he hasn't been taught anything that he would be able to recite anyway. So none of this makes sense.
For me personally, it's always been a case of read, and then the recite came later when they began to understand the previous prophets, the shame as well on Muhammad that he was an illiterate person. I think that's an evolving, if you like, image of Muhammad. As Islam was expanding and getting older, the image of Muhammad was evolving with it. So for me personally, it was a case of read because he was illiterate, and then it became recite at a later stage for the image of Islam and Muhammad. And one of the reasons why I conclude that is because if you consider that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah, the last prophet, the seal of the prophets, considering his role as the mercy of mankind, every prophet wrote down what was revealed to them. Yet this man didn't. He couldn't have taken his God that seriously with the most important message ever to be delivered to mankind on earth.
Go ahead, Liam.
Oh, sorry, mate. I thought I heard you on mute.
No, you're unmuted now. Go ahead if you've got anything you want to add.
Oh, no. Sorry. Oh, no, my bad. I'll put you back on mute. Sorry.
Okay, cool. We might have somebody else who wants to join us. Mahmoud Hassan. I'm waiting to see whether he wants to join us. Okay, so but I'll join and listen. Okay, never mind. He's engaged. Yeah, I think so. Perhaps not. But again, if you're a Muslim, or ideally, but even if you're not a Muslim and you want to join us on this topic or anything else, because it's more of an open session now, then feel free to do that. Anything else, guys, that either any of you want to bring up? We won't prolong the show needlessly, but if there's any other sort of topic that comes to mind that's either related or something that's topical or recent that you want to add in sort of at this moment in time, then by all means bring that up and we can have a conversation on that. I'll look in the meantime on the chat as well to see if anybody's saying anything here.
There's one thing I want to mention, because we came onto the topic yesterday and we said, okay, this could be a topic on its own, but I'm not so sure if this is really going to take so long, because we were talking about the necessity of having Liam, could you mute yourself, because there's a lot of background noise coming from your side.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Let me do it here for you.
Is the necessity of having the Bible to be able to understand the Quran at all. And this is something where I thought that's actually quite interesting, because this is something that is a separate, well, what would you call it, topic in itself, a separate chapter, because I once upon a time wrote a book which I never published because nobody wanted to publish it, so I just left it. And the interesting part here was that I came across exactly this, that you need the Bible to be able to understand Islam. And you need to understand a couple of things about the previous scripture before you can even hope to understand it. I mean, look at the leaving out of certain facts or certain background information where people simply think, well, it's a known thing at the time. It's exactly what Thunderous said, that the people at the time had their stories, had their legends, had their knowledge that was commonplace in those days. And so that's why the Quran leaves out a lot of that stuff. And so a lot of it is just assumed that people sort of knew parts of the Bible and knew what this was, what this was about.
Yeah,
the avenue I've pursued, I think you've probably discerned it over the past weeks, months, and maybe Stops did last year or the year previous when I was involved in the show, is that I do come from the perspective of let's look at Islam through the biblical narratives from Genesis to Revelation. And that's how I've always sort of, well, say always, that's how I've come in recent years to consider Islam. Well, let's see if the story follows through using the understanding that they would have had, or the understanding we should have when you read in the Bible, the biblical text. For instance, as an example, given today's discussion about Khadija, the experience Muhammad had with the angel, the in comparison to the experience that prophets or people had in the Bible previously with angels, the pattern doesn't fit. So that's one mark or one nail in Islam's coffin. If it's supposed to be a continuation of revelation from previous, then that is just one pattern that doesn't ring true. And that's the perspective I come with.
So I wonder if it is worth doing then, Stops and Thunderous. I mean, depending on to what level you guys feel like you can bring things in to compare and to see to what degree, Islam. I mean, they accept the Bible, don't they? Or certain versions, but there's some things that are corrupted, right?
Well, the thing is, you see, using the biblical narrative, Islam has to condemn the Bible. It can't use it. Islam has no choice but to condemn it, because more or less 99% of the accounts that you find in the Quran are bastardized stories that are found in the Bible. Yeah, of anything that's in the Bible, because most of them are sort of like picked from the Talmud or myths or legends that were floating around at the time. I think you'd have to be stupidly perverse or hopelessly ignorant to not see the Dul Qarnayn is just a bastardized version of the Alexander romances. And so on. I mean, 90 Foot Adam's another one. I thought maybe in a couple of weeks' time, if you want me to discuss that, I can bring some meat to the table with reference to 90 Foot Adam. But just going back to
sorry, what's that? Say that again.
90 Foot Adam. As I've done this evening with Khadija, maybe if you wanted a discussion on 90 Foot Adam, I thought maybe I could use that. If you thought that tonight's discussion went well with Khadija, then I had another sort of like discussion in mind to maybe bring out in the future.
Okay, we'll chat about that afterwards. Yeah, cool.
Just going back to the biblical narrative, for instance, in the biblical narrative, you have Adam and Eve on earth. You don't have them in heaven. You have Adam and Eve on earth. You have Satan deceiving Eve. You don't have Satan not bowing down to Adam. You don't have Satan being made out of fire. So there are so many inconsistencies that, for me, I look at the biblical narrative and I think, well, hang on a minute here, that don't fit here, that don't fit here, that don't fit here. Because I remember being in a discussion once, several years ago, in a restaurant full of Muslims. And they turned around and said, oh, we've heard that you've left Islam, we've heard of Islam, why did you do that? And I just turned around and said to them, well, there's only one of two possibilities here. Either the Bible has been corrupted or Muhammad is a false prophet. And you can imagine the Muslims in the restaurant started pacing around, puffing out their chest. You can't say that about our prophet. You can't say that about our prophet. And I remember distinctly going to the biggest one in the room, tapping him on his cheek and saying, well, if you don't like the answers, don't ask the questions. And just promptly walked out. Stupid thing to do, but I have a weakness with reference to belligerence. But that's it. You see, this is where Islam has nowhere to go. You have to try and prove the Bible's being corrupted. Otherwise, you cannot justify Muhammad. So Islam can't use the Bible. But if the Bible can be proved to not have been corrupted, then if you look at the biblical narrative, that's how you measure Islam and Muhammad.
Muted myself. Interesting. Somebody was saying in the chat as well. I think on something else you said, Thunderous. Adam was a giant in Islam, right? Something like 60 cubit feet tall.
Yeah, 60 cubits, which is 90 feet. I mean, that I have got a discussion ready for that. I've got a discussion ready for that one.
Yes.
30 meters, brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah, which is
Or
impossible.
what is the age of Noah? He built the ark at age 950 or something like crazy.
Yeah, it's but also on the size and thing. I think there was some scientific channel that did a scientific narrative, given the physiology of human beings. How big could you actually grow before it would be physically impossible to actually move or survive or whatever. And it wasn't that big. It was definitely not that big. I mean, given the tallest man that's lived is about sort of going on 9 feet. Is it 9 feet? Am I right? Somewhere around there.
What?
I think Robert Wadlow was the tallest human. So I think they did like a scientific thing on how big a human could actually be before, your muscles and your bones and all that sort of stuff wouldn't hold the weight and that sort of stuff. So yeah,
those are the sort of things I wanted to bring out.
Yes,
because just to give you an example, for instance, when you consider the dinosaurs, when man first found the dinosaurs and put the fossils together, they had certain images of them walking upright. If you look at your early books of dinosaurs, Tyrannosaurus Rex was walking upright, Iguanodon was, walking upright. The Brachiosaurus, Brontosaurus always had their heads raised high. But it's through looking at the physiology of how things can be, you find that most dinosaurs now are depicted as walking more horizontally because of the blood pressures that it would take to flow blood to the brain. And also the metabolisms have to be taken into equation as well. But as I say, I don't want to go too much into it, but I've looked into it, and I love for a Muslim to come and let's discuss 90-foot Muhammad.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I suppose that if you were to use a divine inspiration, they'll just argue that an all-powerful God could create a human which is capable of those sorts of feats. So
please, I am trying very hard to be reticent, not because when I start on 90-foot Adam, believe me, it's a left right combination, and I come at it both barrels, and I'm really, don't push me. I'm trying to be reticent.
All right, we'll keep that for another show then. But again, yeah, I mean, I was speaking to somebody today, and it's just easy to claim a miracle. Hey, the fact that I don't believe the Earth is more than 6,000 years old or whatever the case is, miracle. I don't believe evolution's true. Man came along at some point, miracle at some point along the line. Even though many theologians, particularly Christians, are quite happy with evolution, that sort of thing. So wherever there's a gap or an inconsistency, certain people, not all of them, will just insert a miracle into the space provided, and I think that's
an appeal to magic.
Yeah, clearly a challenge. Good, guys. Is there anything else? Otherwise, we could draw it to a close. If there's anything else in the chat that you'd like to ask, or if you want to join and you want to bring up a topic, now's your opportunity. We won't prolong the show unnecessarily long. So if there's anything else within the group here, sometimes we have a lot more activity, sometimes it's less so. So whatever happens is all good.
And if you wanted to do 90-foot Adam, could you just give me a week's notice?
Yes, you and I can chat in afterwards. I think we've got something for next week that I've got in mind. So we'll keep it a couple of weeks, and I'll chat to you in the afterwards in Messenger, and we can work that out.
Okay.
That sounds good. So anything else there in the chat? I don't see anything. Somebody's asking for my disagreements with Rajiv. Well, A, I think he's pseudo-intellectual. B, I think he doesn't understand the argument with free speech and brings up red herrings and straw men. And everybody that I speak to suggests he's an incredibly condescending person who doesn't respond in the same way. So ask for evidence and bring this, and have you read this? Have you read that? I've read it. Well, where's the evidence? No, I've read it. And that's virtually everybody I speak to. So I've not heard, unfortunately, any good words, and I don't have any myself, unfortunately, which is just is what it is.
Yeah, the appeal to or have you read it is quite nonsensical, because whenever I speak to theists, they're always try to when they try to anyway, appeal to their authority that they know more because they've read more. I always find it funny because I learn more from having, engaged discussions with people, and if Muslims or, Christians or whoever can't, I suppose, back up their own book with their own speech, then there's no point in me even attempting to read it, because I'll get my interpretation anyway. So
I think Stop said something interesting yesterday on the other show, didn't you, Stop? So it's like asking them what do they believe and getting them to respond, because you could, take an idea of what Allah is, but sometimes different Muslims have got different ideas. So what is it specifically that you believe about, let's say, Allah or Muhammad, or about this topic or that topic? Because we often get into the idea that they all believe the same thing, and that's clearly not the case. So, speaking to somebody, getting them to respond, and then having that conversation with what they actually believe. And, you could always bring it to, well, what do you think about other Muslims believing this or that? But sometimes it's so easy to forget that we just lump everybody together and think they all have the same belief. And, well, obviously on big things like, is Muhammad the prophet? Sure. But on, more nuanced things, they've got different beliefs. So that's something.
Well, actually, it's a little bit different. And I think we need to be precise here. Mm-hmm. What I said is don't go and say the Quran says X, because if you say that, it gives the person, well, listening to this, a lot of wiggle room, because they can then say, well, actually it doesn't, because the word means this. And rather turn it around and say, well, what is your specific understanding of what it says about topic X? Mm-hmm. And then when you have their specific claim about what they have and what they see, how they interpret the Quran, then you can go discuss this. Otherwise, you can. I mean, and I always use this example that we've had with Rob in Speaker's Corner, where I just said to a person, to a Muslim, well, don't you think it's totally wrong that we are made from water? Okay, but now there's a lot of things that you can say in responding in an disingenuous way, but then this is exactly what we are used to. So instead of going and saying, well, that is what the Quran say, I would now rather have it say, what is your approach, or what is your understanding of what the Quran says about the creation of human beings, and what do you see the role of water being in this process? To get them to say, well, we are all made from water. And then I was, well, what does that mean? What is this word from? Does it mean there's other stuff? What about the clay? What about the dust? What about all the other? And then you have a discussion. Then you can have a conversation about this. But otherwise, if you go off and immediately say, well, the Quran says that and that, no good. Don't do it, because then there's a lot of things that you are opening yourself up to.
Yeah, you're just opening up to interpretation, aren't you, essentially?
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Try and stay away from that as much as possible. Exactly.
Yeah, and James is saying in the comments as well, you can also ask somebody what kind of Muslim they are. If they say they're Salafi, then you know what their interpretation should be on many issues.
No, that's exactly the point. You think you do, and there are certain things, but even among the Salaf, there were differences. This is the huge thing, because the Salaf, I mean, they went all the way to Ali, right? So who's to say that he's not part of it?
Yeah. And that's where you need to be specific about what you were arguing with Kenny Stops about being made from water. I think it's more accurate to say that we're made of water, which we are, but then we're also made of many other elements as well. But to say that we're made from water is just suggest that, water is all that's needed, which is obviously false.
Yeah, and this is the point that I'm making. That's why I'm saying, yes, it is incorrect to say that we are made from water. Absolutely, because the way that I understand it is that my teeth are made from water, which obviously they're not. But now you can go and be disingenuous. And this is, I think, what Kenny Burma is doing now, running around saying, yeah, but this word can mean something and blah, blah. And that's stupid, okay? But people do that. And this is exactly what we're facing. And this is why I will never get into that kind of a discussion. Or try not to anyway, but I'm stupid as well in a lot of things. So, when it gets heated, then I get carried away instead of, keeping the calm and then just saying, listen, what is your claim? And that's it.
Yes, maybe the other options. Stops is to challenge him on the inheritance in the Quran and see what. Maybe it's just an exercise in what sort of twaddle is he going to come up with next. Here's the inheritance error. If you can even understand this, and how are you going to overcome this?
Yeah, but you see, there's different. There it's a little bit different because now you cannot interpret numbers. And this is the beautiful, if you're taking, well, this is basic arithmetic. Come on, fractions is 4th grade or something. So there you cannot discuss this. There you only have the two options where you either go and you enter this proportion argument, or you enter this one after the other. Neither one can be found in the Quran. And therefore, there is no wiggle room here. Here, it's 2/3 plus 1/3 plus an eighth equals 1, and that is wrong. So there you can't discuss, you can't interpret anything.
Yeah. So that would be interesting how they get around that. As you say, there's those two. I have, and I think it was even dear Kenny that sent me a link suggesting that there was some non-scholarly person who decided that, in fact, certain words were misinterpreted. So if you interpreted the words this way, then it didn't really mean this, and it could mean something else. And so, but again, that goes against the tafsirs and what most Muslim scholars say. So, you can dream up anything.
Exactly with the arithmetic. I mean, this is the second point that I go to. Tell me how much a sister inherits. Tell me, is it a half? Is it a quarter? What is it?
Yeah. So that's interesting. Good. Well, I want to, unless there's anything else, I think that's about it. I want to thank, obviously, our guests here. Liam, thank you so much for joining. You're more than welcome to join again. Thunderous, thank you very much for your presentation as well. And I'll chat to you about the 90-foot atom, which it sounds like you're dying to do. Thank you very much for that. TJ, thank you as always for joining us. My co-colleague, co-host, Stop Spamming. Thank you indeed. Stops, have you got a quick hadith of the day to close us off?
Actually, you're going to get 2 for the price of 1 today.
2 for the price of 1. Just before you do that, if you're watching, please do give us some thumbs up. It lets us know that you're kind of are watching or listening, whether you agree or disagree. Unfortunately, it's not always drama on this particular hangout. We might try and add some drama if there's something of interest here. But for drama, you may have to look at other channels. But I like to think that the people that are watching here are, and dare I say it, slightly of a higher level, however you wish to take that. And so we appreciate your views. Honest, those who care about truth, who are less interested in drama. Yes, I know, it can be, it's on certain occasions attractive, but I think I care about truth, and hopefully at least many of you do as well. The question is about an after show. I don't think so at this stage. Give us a 1 for an after show or a 2 if you do not want it. We need to have some people, because Stops and I probably will not stay on the after show. So I will leave it to other people. If you do want to join us on after show, which is simply the hangout that then goes offline, you can still chat as we are now. It just won't be broadcast or recorded. So if you are interested in joining that, where you're not recorded or kept for prosperity, if I've got that correct, then the after show is for you. If I don't get any 1s or not enough, then we'll bring the show to a close.
And
so
guys,
just got enough time. Sorry?
There's one other thing, because I like this idea of having this Discord server running, so that we don't only restrict ourselves to one evening and one specific topic. If anybody has a question, if anybody wants to do something, we do have a Discord server called Jinn&Tonic. Okay, so I don't know if we're gonna be able. If anybody wants to give us your opinion, if anybody wants to, we can have this Discord server activated, and then more people can simply pull in and voice their opinion. It's much more informal. There's no registration or anything that you need to first go and qualify. No registration, yes, but no qualification stage to get on, because anybody can be a troll there, but you can't play videos and you can't do porno unless you want to do or something like this. But other than that, you can't. So this is, if people think this is a good idea, then please let us know.
Well, at the moment, I think it certainly is sorry, Rob.
Carry on.
Yeah, no, it's certainly a good idea, because when the engagements I like to sort of be involved with are certainly ones where you can interact and sort of discuss concepts with actual theists, opposed to I know you get theists on these sorts of channels as well. I don't know if there was any on here other than Intelligent Design I heard earlier. But yeah, a lot of it is just sort of commenting, you know what I mean? So having sort of an open forum where you can have more likely good to link up with any random kind of person out in the community to actually have an engaged discussion with at any time.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we'd have to build it up. At the moment, I've put the link in for the Titans TV one just because there's more people there, and that's where I pop in, whenever I can. Sometimes I'm on each day, but I'm not actually speaking. I might be listening, or I might be on mute, or whatever the case is. But I guess it'd be a case, if you wanted to join the Gin and Tonic, then it would be, I would suggest, more so Islam, but it could be something else. But we then need to build that up in some way. And at the moment, Titans has got, for example, I'm just looking now, they've got about 10 or 12 people on there. So, and that's regularly most evenings, UK evenings anyway. So otherwise we're splitting between two as well. So up to you. I mean, yes, I'm giving Titans the freebie here, but they've already built a bit more of a following. I'm quite happy for us to be on Gin and Tonic, but then somebody has to monitor that as well. And otherwise it's quite quiet there.
Okay, just an idea. Yeah. All right, let's then proceed to the hadith. Okay, like I said, it's 2, and it's about yawning. Now, we know today yawning, I am aware of 4 different reasons. One is actually low oxygen, one is something stuck in the brain, one is bored, and there's some reasons. But Muhammad was not aware of this. Okay, so according to Muhammad, it's a little bit different. Because Abu Huraira, well, who else, says that yawning is from Satan. And if any one of you yawns, he should check his yawning as much as possible. Because if any one of you during yawning should say, ha, Satan will laugh at him.
How's that a problem there?
So, there you go. It's Sahih Bukhari book 54, hadith number 509. Satan will laugh at him if you say ha. Okay, I thought you were.
Satan's been laughing at me all day today.
You say ha.
Me too.
I mean, where do they come up with these sort of things, isn't it? I mean, it's like maybe they're sitting there very bored in the desert or whatever the case is. Let me just come up with any old nonsense I can possibly think of.
Yeah, but you're crossing the desert on a camel, and this is a lot of recitation from the Quran actually comes from the rhythm of the camel trotting through the desert.
Yeah, I can imagine.
The second one.
Terribly boring. Go ahead, Stops.
Abu Huraira as well reported, Apostle of Allah said, when any one of you awakes from sleep and performs ablution, he must clean his nose 3 times, for the devil spends the night in the interior of his nose.
Is this everybody's nose stops, or just men, women, or?
No, everyone.
Everyone, okay. I wonder, do Muslims actually, in your experience, do they do this?
Yes.
Okay.
It's part of wudu.
Right. And on that fascinating note, we'll bring the show to a close. Thank you to all the viewers. Thank you again to Liam, Thunderous, TJ, guest panelists, especially to Thunderous for his presentation. And as always, to my amazing co-host. Thank you to all of you, and we will see you again next Friday, 8 p.m. UK time. With that, good night.
Good night, and thank you for letting me have an opportunity as well.
Thank you for your work. Thank you very much for what you did. I forgot to say, I actually wanted to preface my hadith with this. Thunderous, thank you very much for what you did, because I know that you've looked into it, you've spent time on this, and this is very, very much appreciated. And if anybody wants to take this as a good example, please do go ahead and do so. If you have a topic, if you want to present something, don't let anything stop you. We're always welcome for people contributing something, okay? Thank you.
Yes, indeed. So on that note, thank you, good night, and see you next Friday.
Good night.
Thank you very much.